McDonald's, Tim Hortons, Canadian Tire. I think of a big upfront expense, and then I can sit back and let the money roll in. Okay, I'm joking. Not so fast. There is a lot more to being a franchise owner than simply buying into the brand. I met with Jamshaid Hashmi, a franchise expert, to understand what it really takes to be a franchise owner. Jam, let's talk about franchises. What are they?
Well, franchising actually is a mode of expansion for a company into a market, where they essentially give the rights that they have of their trademark, their logo, the systems that they have developed to an individual, who in turn pays them a fee on an ongoing basis to utilize that to grow themselves an independent business.
Now, do you think this is an alternative to someone who's just starting out being their own boss, as opposed to just hanging a shingle themselves?
I think there's two types of individuals that you'll find that oftentimes go out there and seek franchises. There's some individuals who've always had a dream to want to go out there and own a franchise, and then there's others that wanted to go out there and just own their own business. The difference being the guy who wants to, or the girl who wants to own their own business is slightly more entrepreneurial. So if someone is not ready to follow a systemized way of doing things, then perhaps a franchise is not necessarily a good fit. For those individuals that have got no experience, a first-time business buyer, a franchise is a great opportunity to follow a proven model, a proven system that can get them into business for themselves.
All right, but like anything, there are going to be pros and there are going to be cons. So aside from the fact that there is a business model that allows you to get your foot in the door and you can start to move forward, what are some of the other advantages? And then we'll talk about the disadvantages.
I think the big advantages for a franchise is you don't have to go out there and invent something from scratch. If you want to have marketing materials or branding, you don't have to worry about designing a logo. All this comes from the franchisor. Now, as far as what's on the other side, you are obviously going to be following the rules and regulations that the franchisor sets out for you. So there's some appropriate use of the marks and there's some misappropriate use of the marks. So you've got to be careful because there's some regulations that the franchisor really calls the shots on what you can do with their brand when you're growing the business.
So when you say that there's appropriate and maybe a little less appropriate, what do you look for in the details?
I think the key is all outlined for you in a document called the Franchise Disclosure Document. The great thing in Canada is that there's a regulatory body that goes out there and governs franchising, which means that if you're a prospective buyer, you're going to have access to a detailed document, oftentimes more than 80 pages of legalese, that can tell you all details that you need to know about a franchise. The key is to pay attention to the fine print.
Buyer beware, as they say. Now, given this environment, are you seeing more people move into the franchise business?
I think we're finding that over the last 3 or 4 years, especially with the changes that have happened in the economy, we're finding individuals are either proactively making a decision to take that control, get the financial freedom that they need, but more so people are reactively realizing that perhaps a franchise or controlling their own destiny is really important for them. The reason being, jobs are just not as many as they used to be. And this obviously offers an alternative to them to invest in themselves and go out there and build a business.
Now, I'm thinking when you say invest in yourself, sometimes people think if I start a franchise, I'm going to hire you as a manager, you can go in and run it, and back up the truck, I'm going to make buckets of money.
Like anything in life, I think you're going to find there's going to be some franchises that come with a very high capital investment. And those are the ones where it allows you to be kind of a semi-absentee owner, which is something that you just described. More often we're finding that individuals are getting into franchises that are owner-operator. And so think past the burgers and the French fries franchise or the pizza franchise and the coffee franchise. Think about the fact that there are hundreds of franchises, be it home cleaning, be it fire restoration, be it senior care. These types of franchises require an owner to be an operator first before they can get to a point where they can scale their business and enjoy it, employees doing the work for them.
What is the excitement? What is the allure?
Well, I think the allure in franchising is I'm going to go out there and not have to scrape my elbows and my knees as often because someone else has done that for me. And in exchange of that, I'm going to pay a little bit of a fee, but it allows me to be in business for myself, have the freedom, the flexibility, and the control that I'm looking for.
Now, when you say a little bit of a fee, fees can be very wide-ranging. I've heard some over $1 million for some of the larger franchises. That's a big price tag.
There is a price of being in a business, and there are two components to the fee. There's an upfront franchise fee, oftentimes what you pay for the rights to acquire that franchise, and then there's an ongoing royalty fee. There may be some other ancillary fees, but remember, these are all outlined for you in the franchise disclosure document. Thank God for the Government of Canada. governing franchising for us here.
Now, what happens if you buy into a franchise and you want to get out?
You know, oftentimes during the initial part of your due diligence, you want to be asking questions to the franchisor on what is my exit strategy. And so that could entail you selling off the business, or worst case scenario, you're looking to close down the business. There are sections and clauses in the franchise agreement that are dedicated to the options that you have as a buyer.
When you've spoken to people that have gone this route, they become a franchise owner, what was the thing that they wish they had known when they were crafting the deal that they found out after?
I think most individuals, when they're going through the process, oftentimes will look at a franchise attorney to review the legal documents. It may be written in layman's terms where an average person like myself would understand, but really in the fine print, you've got to go out there and pay attention. Hire a franchise attorney because they can really outline for you your obligations and the franchisor's obligations, because certainly as a franchisor, we also have obligations to the franchisee. So a legal attorney in that case is a best option to prevent any type of issues.
When you're thinking about starting a franchise, what's the time frame from thinking, okay, I've got an idea, I'm going to sit down and negotiate, and then I'm actually opening the doors for business?
I think it depends on 2 or 3 different things. Number one is how urgent you are to want to do something. There's some individuals that, for example, may find themselves out of work, they want to do something right away, or they're not homebodies, they need to go out there and do something. I think the quickest you're looking at opening the doors of any franchise can be anywhere from 30 to 45 days. Remember, there's a selection process that the franchisor has to go through, and the franchisee or the potential candidate.
They have to align.
They have to align. There has to be a match. Following that, the franchisors oftentimes have detailed training, detailed ongoing training as well, before you can even open the doors of your business. If you're looking at a traditional franchise, site selection often takes an amount of time as well.
Now, what would you like to say to someone who's saying, okay, you know what, listening to Jam, I'm going to go out and get a franchise?
Well, I would say pay attention to 2 or 3 different things during the due diligence phase. Number one, make sure you go through the franchise disclosure document in detail that every franchisor is required to send to any prospective buyer. Number 2, plan appropriately. And what I mean by that is make sure that you don't stop 3 feet from goal. You don't run out of money before the business starts generating enough money.
That's right.
And number 3, don't assume that just because you bought a franchise, you can sit at home and the money will come in. Obviously, there's a ramp-up period associated with that, and so make sure planning effectively before you open the doors of any businesses.
Now, when you just commented on dollars, how much money should you have set aside before you can realistically think you're going to start to make money?
We always suggest that in addition to the franchise fee, which is kind of what you pay the franchisor, you want to make sure that you have at least 6 to 9 months, sometimes even 12 months of living expenses covered, your food, water, shelter costs. So you're not relying on the business to pay your mortgage immediately. Some franchisors have a return on investment number that is measured in a few months, some in a couple of years. So depending on the type of business you're looking at, you want to make sure you pay attention.
Thank you, Jen.
Welcome.
One of the things I really took out of this is that owning a franchise is clearly not about having the truck back up with buckets of cash. In fact, in the beginning, it can be quite the opposite. You really do need to have at least 12 months of living expenses available to you in case it takes longer to get the business off the ground. The franchise fee is simply not enough. That's like saying I'm going to buy a car and then not factor in insurance, gas, and repairs. Also, there are a lot of companies out there. Look beyond food and ice cream. There are so many opportunities opening up. Home cleaning, home restoration, tax consulting, just to name a few.